All right, everybody, thanks for joining me today as we're going to be taking a look at alternate arts. That's right, we're going to take a look at current alternate arts in Pokemon TCG from the Sword and Shield era and how well are they doing for your Pokemon investments here in the beginning of 2024. So let's take a look right after this. Alright everybody, as always, I'm Andy with Northwoods TCG, and today we're going to be talking about some Pokemon investment in alternate arts from the Sword and Shield era. They were kind of going down. What is going on with them today, and is there something to be looking at currently in this market when it comes down to these alternate arts? So guys, before I go into this video, make sure you guys take a minute to hit that subscribe, hit that notify, and last but not least, the most helpful thing you can do, hit that like button. As we continue to talk about different Pokemon investment here on the channel, we're going to go ahead and kick her into alternate arts today because there's been a lot of controversy on alternate arts, in my opinion, on whether or not they're going to hold up. How they've been performing over the last 6 months seems to have been a little bit of a slump. And today we're going to go ahead and start with battle styles and go all the way through Silver Tempest and take a look at alternate arts. And I also throw in two other ones that I think are really, really good alternate arts. And we're going to take a look at how they're performing. So we're looking at the best ones from each one of those sets, the top alternate arts, the top chases, and we're going to take a look at two other ones that I think are honorable mentions and doing some really cool things. One of them staying a little flat, but one of them is doing really well. So today we're going to go ahead and kick over to the other screen, and we're going to start off with battle styles. All right, guys, here I am in my little corner up in the corner of the screen here for you guys, and today we're going to be taking a look first at the Tyranitar V. That's right, this was the main hit out of battle styles. Overall, if we scroll down, you can see here's the last 6 months. And there's been a lot of controversy about the last 6 months, how some of these cards have had a little bit of a spike here, and then all of a sudden they just continue to drop out the last 6 months. And this has been a very common trend. We go out to the 1 year mark on this one. You can see from its high to its low, it's just been doing a nice little drop down. And this has been something that's been happening with quite a few of the top chase cards when it comes to alternate arts currently in Pokemon TCG. I'm going to start off doing this, and at the end I'm going to do a little bit of a breakdown why I think this is happening and what's really occurring here as time moves on in this hobby and what potentials we could see with these alternate arts moving forward. So I'm just going to do a quick little examination of all the top hits. So we're going to kick over to Chilling Reign. So here you go. We got the Blaziken VMAX. Of course, this one was over $200, almost $280 at one point. And here we are today, and we're already down to about $170. But Blaziken's got a little bit of a different graph. If we zoom out to that 1 year, you can see that hike all the way up here to about 127 on TCG Player. I know there were some sales on eBay around that $280 at this point in time where we saw this just sheer climb. And this is where I talk about, and when you're looking at investment again, when you see a graph that just has sheer climb, that's very concerning when it comes down to investment. Am I jumping on this point in time? I would if I'm trying to make some really good quick cash. If you're looking for a long-term investment, I'm not jumping in on this particular line. I am waiting to see that hacksaw move up like I've talked about on previous videos. This tells me that people were hyping and FOMOing and they were just buying because it was there. And as you can see, the result of something like that in a graph is exactly what we see here. That sheer drop all the way back the other end. So you could buy here, try and sell somewhere in this top third of this graph, and you'd still make a decent amount of profit at that point in time. But you don't want to ride it all the way back down because, as you can see, if you would have bought it at around $169 here at the beginning, you could have gone all the way down to $163 by holding onto that card. You're still almost back to zero, but once again, there's no profitability, and actually there's possible opportunity to get it at a better price on some examples. So, like I said, 6 months. We've seen it drop, and now we're kind of seeing that little growth. And once again, I'm starting to see them stair steps. We'll see what this one does. And when we start seeing them stair steps, that's what I'm really looking for when it comes down to the investment of these particular cards. We're going to kick into the Umbreon VMAX, of course. This is the big dog from Evolving Skies, the one that everybody wants, and probably the highest driving alternate art so far in the Sword and Shield era. And we can see a very similar trend in the last 6 months. We had that really big spike that they was doing extremely well, over $600. We saw this sheer drop. And then we saw it come back up, and we saw it come back down, and now we're kind of seeing a little flat line. We're starting to see that little bit of stair step. So at this point in time, it's going to be interesting on how well it's going to continue to perform. But once again, when we start seeing that real good movements, that up and down hacksaw motions, that's when I'm really going to be looking. But once again, not a bad price for a card in general. And if we zoom out to the 1 year, you can see it was at the high of about 652, and then we just seen that sheer drop. Once again, guys, notice the graphs every single time I talk about this. We see this shoot up where there's no hacksaw. It's just shooting. And that's not typically a good time to invest in something. And this is something that's very important when you're dealing with investing, is you need to learn how to see graphs and see trends and understand straight shots up are not usually a good time for investment. They're a good time for quick gains. If you want to make some money on a card, you can buy it down in this bottom third and ride it up to the top third, or when you start to see it come down on those graphs, that's when you sell. That's what you're looking at when you're looking for short term. We're trying to get that flip. Here, if you're looking at investment, you don't want to see this as an investment. I don't look for this for investment cards. I look for that hacksaw pattern that I've talked about in previous videos. So we're going to go ahead. That's Evolving Skies currently. We are seeing it's come up from its low, and it's kind of just stalling out right there at around that roughly $540. Gengar VMAX, another one, did extremely well. Got all the way up past $200. Here we go in the last year. That's our peak right here, is just recently. And it's at about $218, $220 right now for that particular card. As you can see, got up to that point after it dipped right here, and now we've just seen it kind of coming back down. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that's going to occur. But once again, we're seeing the exact same pattern. Once again, that shoot up. And that shoot up is not something that I'm really excited about when you see this big spike and then a continued growth, and now we're seeing the drop. It will balance out at some point. These cards are just too young to really have that. And that's something that we're really going to be talking about futuristically on these investments. Charizard V, another one of them cards. This one has had more of a little bit what I'd like to see in an investment. And I think the Charizard V is getting to a point, as long as we don't get any Brilliant Stars reprints, it's going to do really well. Right now, currently, this card is back up to about $120. It did drop down to about $100 at one point in time. And then you can see, we're seeing that little bit of a stair step. It goes up, and then it drops, and then it goes up a little again, drops, it goes up a little bit, it drops, it's going back up again, and we might see it go up or down at this point. It's kind of flatlined for the last month, but we're starting to see that stair step, which means supply and demand is starting to take effect, not just excitement over this particular card. The 1 year trend, of course, of the Charizard V has been just a pretty much slow stepping downward all the way down to this low point here of about 103. And now we're seeing that upward movement. So I think we'll see how it goes on this graph over the next month or so. If we continue to see a little growth and a little bit of drop, a little bit of growth and a little bit of drop, where the high is a little bit higher than the last high and it keeps kind of moving that way, then we might have seen this thing mature out finally and really have an opportunity to see better growth. Champ V, next one from Astral Radiance. Once again, kind of a similar story. We're seeing that really slow, just dying down all the last year. Realistically, it's just been kind of dumping. And now we're kind of to a point where it's flatline. So once again, we're seeing that flatline position here at this point in time. If you look at the last year, same thing in the last 6 months. It's kind of falling into this little range right here. If you kind of minimize this, where you're sitting at about $185, $184, or $85 to $84. Let me clarify that. Not $185. It's $85 roughly for this particular card. And you can see a good average right at about that point in the numbers here. So we're kind of finding a little bit of a stagnant spot here where it's kind of bouncing within that range. They're really, I mean, the graph looks like it's a lot, but realistically it's $9. So we're jumping in the last 6 months. It's really moved about $9 up and down. So there's not a lot of movement on this card. To me, that's pretty flat when you're talking about a alternate art or a chase card in a particular set. But Astral Radiance really doesn't have a huge chase to it. Even the Origin Form Dialga and Palkia are sitting down right around that $50 to $40 range. So there isn't huge chases in Astral Radiance. Now, Garantina, of course, this one, the Tina is going to be the big chase from Lost Origins and has continued to have a chase. And as you can see in the last 6 months, just like most of the alternate arts, we're starting to see this little dip, this trough down. But once again, look at this, guys. Look at the one thing that I do like about this particular card is we're seeing that stair stepping again. And this is what I talk about. You got a peak, you got a valley. You got a peak that's higher than the last one, you got a valley of the last. Now you got a peak that's higher than the last two, and now we're going into a valley. That is very good to see. I like seeing that in investment opportunities, is that stair stepping, because that means you're dealing with supply and demand, and the card is slowly ratcheting up because there is enough supply and enough demand, and people are slowly inching that price up, and people are slowly buying into it and buying up into those particular numbers. So once again, that's what we're looking at for the Garantina. You look for the last year, once again, similar story to all alternate arts from Sword and Shield. The last year has really been a lot of just falling down. I am liking the last 3 months of the year here, or last 3 months here, where we are starting to see some value gaining back into those particular sets. So there's really good options when it comes down to that. Lugia V, we all know the story with the Lugia V also. Just a pretty steady drop the last year. We can go for the last year even. Once again, just like all the other alternate arts, we're seeing that really good just steep down, coming down to this about that $110 range, and then we've seen it pick off the floor now, so it dropped down to the lowest point of $113, and now it's peaking again. Will it make another peak like this and then drop again? We'll see. Once again, it's not one of them cards that I'm really jumping in, because as you can see, we're seeing these big gains. This one's almost $20 from high to low, so you're seeing a really big jump at that point. And once again, it's not that stair stepping. I like seeing every $5 to $10 you see a stair step of these particular items. So once again, is it there for investment yet? I don't think so, and there's still a lot of Silver Tempest out there, so it's really not something that I'm really chasing as an investment. If I pull them, I don't mind keeping them, because I think overall they're going to be good investments out of pulls. But I'm not going out and buying these particular cards yet, because I still see this Lugia. Its potential is that we could see it drop back under sub 100 here in the near future. Not saying it will, yeah, but I could definitely see it happening, dropping down close to that $100 range, by in the next few months. As Silver Tempest gets off the market here, and as of next year when it goes out of rotation, that's going to be a point in where we might see a lot of this value start to really kick in these alternate art sets, especially watching Battle Styles, Evolving Skies, and Fusion Strike, Chilling Reign are one of the 4 sets you should really be watching for that really good growth, that more stair-stepping growth, where we're seeing people increase price and the demand slowly coming up to it. Those are going to be the things that are going to really be successful when it comes down to your singles investment if you're looking at investing in alternate arts. Now, I got 2 other ones that I think are really cool. I like them personally, and I think that they're very underrated. First one I got on here is a Celebi card. I do talk about this one a lot, but I love the artwork. I absolutely love the Celebi card. I think it is extremely underrated, and currently this card is sitting at about $23. But once again, look at what we see whenever, and I'm pointing this out because it's a good example. We see that sheer drop coming down. There's really no stair stepping. It's just a straight down. We hit a valley here. So what happened is the valley hit, and all of a sudden people spiked on it because it got down around that $20 range. So then we've seen people spike it back up to 28. This is more what I like to see if we're seeing falling, is this dropping. So now the market's correcting, and now we're kind of coming into a flatline area here. So I'm hoping it stops right around this $22, $23 range at this point. And I think that that's pretty well balanced for this particular market currently. As you can see, the next one up is about $26. And if we go down to the list for the near, I'll look down the list here real quick for the next near mint one to see where the next pricing is for the sale for that too. And if we kind of scroll down, lightly play, here you go. So your next near mint is going to actually be a bit of an increase. You're going to be around $24 for that particular card. So we are seeing a little bit of a jump, a little bit of a move up on this card for the next sales coming up, as long as nobody jumps in and puts a cheaper one in there. But overall, I think that there's some really good potential value in this particular alternate art. The other one I'm going to pull up is going to be the Beedrill. The Beedrill V is another one. I love the artwork. I think it's a really cool artwork. I know Beedrill isn't a huge Pokemon favorite compared to even Celebi, but overall, it's another one. We're seeing these nice little shoots up now. Now, this is something that's concerning again. We're seeing this little bit of a bump, and as you can see, we're seeing this dropping out, so we're seeing really good dropping, and now we're starting to see these little bit of bump. Now, it looks like a big bump again, but it's only about $2. So we're not talking huge like bites, like we just went up all the way back up to 28 from being at 17. Or you got the low of 17, just under 17. It didn't bump up like 30. When you see those kind of sheer gains, that's really something to be concerned of. Right now, I'm going to be curious to see, has it gone up and did another peak? Are we on the upward movement? This will drop a little bit of a valley. And then when we see the next peak, a little valley, and next peak, then that tells you that the market is actually working. You're getting that working in the markets that really start pulling that. Same thing with the Celebi. I mean, we're seeing that drop. And if we go over to last year, you're seeing that spiking drop. You get this huge spike where people FOMO'd again. Same thing here. You know, if you look at the big gain here, you're seeing that big jump here where it's just straight lines. Straight line jumps are not good typically in the market. So you're going from 24 all the way up to 38 in a straight line in a couple weeks. That's telling me that people all of a sudden had a surge. A big content creator or someone put out the Celebi V saying it's a great buy, and all of a sudden this market jumped, and as you can see, it just kind of dropped back down to here. And now we're seeing that spike, and it's kind of doing this up-down heartbeat. So if you could buy them right around, in my opinion, if you could buy them right around that $20 to $22 range, I think overall you're going to have some really good value in this particular card, especially in the next 5 years for an investment in the alternate arts. So there you go, guys. That's what we're seeing right now in the current market. Now, the real question is what are we doing for investment purposes? So when we look at these cards, you're seeing a lot of different options inside of these particular cards, and that's why I like pointing out the dip and valley method. When you start seeing dip and valley on growth, That's really good indications that the market has been satisfied with supply and demand, and that the growth now is more organic. It's more of people growing into it and then someone raising the prices because people are buying it, and then they sell out the cheaper stuff, and then all of a sudden it starts to move up a couple bucks, and you see that couple, $5-10 increments on some of the big cards. The Celebi, like $2-3 increments, are just fine. Those are what you're looking for. You're not looking for those huge spikes where giant jumps like $20 in one fitting. Because if you do that, that just tells you that someone made a video on it, there's been hype and FOMO around it, and it's just going to be one of them things that's probably going to come back down and correct. The corrections will always come if you see those big spiked items like that. So what are we doing for investments in alternate arts? I think that there's some really good investment opportunities. I mean, currently, if you ask me, the Blaziken's starting to look a little bit better, but the Tyranitar, I would stay away from that one currently. The Gengar is on a downward trend. We've seen the spike, so I think that one's probably going to be coming up to where it's going to stabilize a little bit better. The Charizard V is another one where we're starting to see that stair-stepping a little bit. And I think that we're probably done seeing Brilliant Stars be reprinted. So that's going to give an opportunity for that stuff to occur, where we'll see that more market growth and that more stabilized growth on these particular cards. Garantina, once again, I think the Garantina is another perfect example of where it's kind of hit a plateau or a low spot here around that $230 range. And now we're seeing that really good, that hacksaw movement in the upward direction. So unless we get a massive dosage of Lost Origin out there, I think that Garantina is in a really good spot and it's going to do extremely well. Once again, the Lugia, I think the Lugia still got a little bit to drop. We're seeing a good downward movement, but we haven't seen any real upward movement except for this first spike, and it's flatlining. So I would wait until after this spike. If you start seeing it doing more consistent jumps up of like $5 or $7, and you see it kind of increase every time, like a little bit of an up and then a trough, the next high is a little bit higher, the next low is a little bit higher than the last low, and it's starting to do that, that's really good opportunities to really get in on them, in my opinion. That's when I start buying these cards, especially modern cards. That's really good feelings in it. Now, why have we seen alternate arts do what they've been doing in Sword and Shield? Well, I think that there's a couple situations that we're dealing with when it comes down to alternate arts. And let me know in the comments below what you think is causing this. But in my opinion, what I am seeing when it comes down to alternate arts, there's been a few things. Number one, I think alternate arts were hyped extremely heavy in Sword and Shield. So the prices had always been really inflated when it came down to those particular cards. Some of them really inflated, others not so much, but if they weren't the chase cards, they were a little bit less inflated. But in general, there was a lot of people that were just buying alternate arts because alternate arts were the hot thing. What has happened in the market currently is that we're realizing in Scarlet and Violet that these aren't the best alternate arts that have ever been out there. These aren't the best alternate arts that have ever been created. Now that we've got this Illustrator Rare and the Secret Illustrator Rare categories in the Pokemon TCG, that is definitely changing the aspect and the feelings when it comes down to these particular cards. And I think that that's going to be a feeling that's going to continue as we move on in time. What else can they come up with? What's going to be the chase coming up in Scarlet and Violet? There's going to be a new rarity or something that's going to occur in Scarlet and Violet, I would think, at some point in time. That usually happens right around this time period. The next couple sets, we'll probably be seeing some kind of new chase coming into, or rarity coming into Scarlet and Violet. So that's one reason that I think that a lot of these alternate arts are dropping quite a bit, is just because of the fact that they were overinflated anyways, because a lot of people just chase those and chase them only. The other part is, too, people have moved to different parts in the hobby. It's like we've had almost a shift in the hobby and a split where you've got three different categories. People that have just stayed in Sword and Shield and they're just not leaving it, so they're still buying and working in that Sword and Shield range. You've got people that have gone to Sun and Moon. They're in the tag team phase, and we saw all that explosion in tag teams, while alternate arts and Sword and Shield just continue to fall down. So they're moving that direction. We have had a lot of people move into the Scarlet and Violet era where they are chasing these new Illustrator Rares and these new Secret Illustrator Rares. And we're seeing good growth in those, some of those also. It's not just straight line drops for a lot of those cards. Pokemon 151, a lot of the cards are doing really well still as we are getting into this almost 6 months out from that set being released. So we're seeing some really good things in several different areas of the Pokemon TCG. We're also seeing some more movement going into XY. So people are moving, which is great. People moving in this hobby and going different directions is definitely a good thing. Doesn't mean that it's not time to invest in some of these alternate arts. No, I think some of them have definitely hit that low points and are going to have some really good growth upwards. As long as we don't get any massive reprints at the end of the era for Brilliant Stars, Astral Radiance, Lost Origins, and Silver Tempest, all of those I see doing really well futuristically. So I think that there's some good potential for some of these to jump in for your investments for Pokemon in alternate arts. But in other parts, I think that there's some waiting periods still for some of these cards. I think that there's some correction times for some of these that are a little bit overinflated. You know, the Umbreon, another one that I think is still possibly a little bit overinflated for its price, you know, for the set itself. I know it's a little bit more difficult to pull, but I also think that there's been a lot of hype and FOMO around that set, and we could see some correctionary points. Am I going to go and buy a $550 alternate art in this point in time? No. I would probably just move, if for an investment, I probably would just move on and not even worry about it. If I was a collector, I would probably be considering purchasing at its current drop. Do I think that there's still a little bit of a drop for a collector? Yeah, I think there could be a little bit of a drop, but I also think it would quickly regain that capital that it drops, even if it does go a little bit lower. So if you're looking for a collection piece, I think that you're good. You're going to see that maybe drop a little bit and then just come right back. Within a year or so, it'll jump right back to the points that we're at now. As especially now that Evolving Skies is out of rotation, there's definitely going to be no more reprints of this. Whatever's out there at the distributors and out there for different products currently is probably all that we're going to see. And that's a good thing when it comes down to your collection also at that point in time. So once again, guys, there's some really good opportunities. There's some really good looking alternate arts. And overall, I think there's some good demand on most of the chase ones in general. I think that futuristically they do well. I think the last year has really shown where that low point could be or where we're going to be bottoming out on some of these. And we are starting to see the recovery on some of them, which is a good thing. You're starting to see people starting to buy them at the prices that they're at now because they're comfortable with it. And then when that happens, then you might be starting to see sales go up on those particular alternate arts. And you'll see the value continuing to increase at this point in time, especially the ones that are stair-stepping, like that Charizard V alternate art and Garantina. We're starting to see that little stair-stepping, that little bit of a nice little growth upwards and more organic growth so that you can actually have an opportunity to get it at a reasonable price, but you're not going to get them big shoots where you get a hype and FOMO pushing things straight up. And if it does happen, you'll probably correct back to where the stair-stepping stopped. So overall, I think that there's probably some good options in those two particular cards. If you don't have them already, it's definitely a time to maybe look at it, especially the Charizard V. I feel that that card is going to be pushing up again here in the near future, and there'll be some good opportunity futuristically. Of course, guys, it's a Charizard. You're not going to go wrong. Do I see that card going sub 100 if it does, if for very long at all? No, I think that there's plenty of time for that card to come back up and do really well. Overall, guys, hopefully this is a good conversation about your Pokemon investment in cards. Hopefully you guys can get some data out of this and definitely make some decisions. Checking out these alternate arts and watching what's happening in alternate arts is really interesting as we are getting further and further away from Sword and Shield. And as these sets go out of rotation, it's going to be really interesting how well this continues to perform. Hopefully, guys, this is a good video. Once again, let me know in the comments what you guys think. The reasonings are the alternate arts have dumped so far. I'm really curious to hear your guys' perspective on it. It's always cool to have that talk and discussion to see why we believe what we do. It's really cool to see people's perspectives. So once again, guys, if you do like this kind of content, make sure you guys hit that subscribe, that notify, and of course, hit that like button before you leave. Also, check out the two videos at the end. That also helps the channel. Watch the two videos at the end and check them out and see what you think about those. And we'll see you next time here on Northwoods TCG.